All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. And I'm glad you're here today. So how are you today, Pita?
All doing fine. We have a nice day of weather.
Good.
It's getting to be warm.
I
Very
agree.
nice. How are you today?
I'm good. Ready. I'm fired up about today's podcast.
All right.
So we are on episode number 352. That's 352. The title of today's podcast is Bad Deals versus Gargantuan Deals in Creative Real Estate.
Okay.
Here is the description. Bad deals versus gargantuan deals in creative real estate can make the entire difference in your hard-earned time results. In this single episode, we are going to explore what makes a bad deal and the warning signs to watch out for. You don't want these costly mistakes that can set you back years in your career. So it is essential to understand how to identify and avoid them. These common pitfalls will only distract you from seeking and finding the gargantuan deals that will make you rich and free. We will discuss what makes a gargantuan deal and how to spot them in any market going up or going down. Throughout this episode, you will hear real live examples of both bad deals and gargantuan deals, so you can easily understand the difference between the two. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Plus, expect to hear some actionable advice on how to find and avoid these deals so you don't get sucked into too many suspects that will eat your dreams of creative real estate, setting you free for lunch. All right, let's get started with sharpening your skills. What do you think, Peter?
I'm ready to listen. All ears. I've learned, I don't know, I think everybody does it. You could have a title to something and you'll talk about that, but it's just everything else that goes in there. Like you might say that, talk about your topic and like nothing hits me because I've heard some part of it. You'll say something else like that's all I needed to hear today. So I'm just all ears. Whatever you got to say. Let's see what I can fit into my little puzzle.
Nice. So let's get started with our housekeeping. So we record on Thursday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go to Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube and type in Flipping Houses for Rookies, you can find us. You can also respond or input your questions or any ideas into the podcast. If you wherever one of those platforms allows you to type, you can type your questions there. And only answer questions pertaining to the podcast because I don't want to distract our flow. However, if you have other questions, you can go to WhatsApp Messenger and look for Let's Talk Real Estate. And there is a group there that you can share your ideas and have like-minded people around you and be part of that group. Or you can message us directly at flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side of that page, you'll find a support link, and you can get us directly. You can send a question to myself or Peter privately. Also, you can go into the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, and there's a link there that will help you with all of whatever we're talking about today. The idea is that I put a link in there to help you implement whatever we're talking about. The podcast is pretty much designed to tell you what to do, but not how to do it. So the link is the how-to stuff. So you might want to go in there and check it out. Okay. So here we go, Peter. Start a podcast.
Good.
As Bill style, Pete, let's clear up a few terms before we start.
Good way to go.
What does gargantuan mean? and creative real estate.
Okay.
In most definitions, gargantuan refers to sizes like enormous, tremendous in size.
Mm-hmm.
However, I want you to hear my definition of gargantuan creative real estate deals.
Mm-hmm.
It means, to me, tremendous in volume or degree. Tremendous in volume or degree. In other words, it is bigger than the norm.
Right.
It is easily noticeable to you and others
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a different size, a bigger size.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's do bad.
Mm.
This means a low standard or poor quality,
Mm-hmm.
not such as to be hoped for or desired. Sometimes considered unpleasant or unwelcomed for your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
Lastly, let's look at freedom, or better yet, financial freedom. Financial freedom means you get to make life decisions without being overly stressed about the financial fallout of those decisions.
Hmm. That's a different way of putting it.
Financial freedom. You get to make life decisions without being overly stressed about the financial fallout of those decisions.
That's true. That's not like the monetary, like the how much and the numbers, but just the state of mind, which is really the bottom line and the result of it all. What if, I think we can all think of people that have lots of money, they shouldn't worry, and they're worried more than ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what good is it? But it's that state of mind that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I don't think I've ever heard you use that.
Okay. By the way, there is a formula for this financial freedom, so you know what you need as a bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
That formula is your monthly or yearly liabilities multiplied by 3.
By 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Once that number matches your assets production monthly or yearly, you can say you are financially free.
3x.
So let's do an X. Yeah, well, I like 5x, but that's I used to do that when I had employees, but now I don't have many employees. I just outsource everything.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is taken off of the line. So, this is kind of a funny thing for me to talk about. I'm going to try to just ad hoc this for a second. A profit and loss statement.
Hmm.
When you start at the very top of a profit and loss statement, right? You have your income.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your income needs to then subtract the cost of goods.
Right.
What's left after that is your corrected gross income.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just do this as if it was a car. So you're a car dealership and you're selling cars, and you sell the car for $10,000.
Yep.
The cost of goods would be, well, you had to buy the car,
Mm-hmm.
and that was $6,000.
Yeah.
And another line on cost of goods would be, well, you had to do $1,000 worth of repairs. So now you're at $7,000. So there's no way that you can buy and sell that car without those numbers.
Right.
Okay. The next number down is your is your corrected gross income.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're down to there, now that's where your rent and your light bill and your payroll and all your monthly expenses come out.
Got it.
So you have a $10,000 car, $6,000 to buy the car, $1,000 to do the repairs. So your corrected gross income is $7,000. I'm sorry, $3,000.
Three. Yeah,
$3,000
three. Yep.
is $3,000. So you have $3,000 to pay for your, and I don't mean the whole rent. You need to break things down, but to pay your electric bill, your phone bill, pay your help, pay your, all that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And then at the very bottom, when you get all of those expenses done, you have a net profit, which is spendable cash, as I always refer to, hip National Bank, baby.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Sure.
Is it clear?
Yeah. Well, my wife does the bookkeeping, so I don't have to pay much attention to the details. But it's true. Even my music lessons, same thing. If you deduct this, deduct that, deduct this, and then you get the final number. But you have actual goods coming off, like the repairs gives you corrected, and after other miscellaneous expenses.
Well, if we were a house, it would be something like this. So we sold the house for $100,000. We bought it for $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
We put $10,000 worth of repairs in it. So now we own it for $70,000.
Yeah.
Right. Now we're down at the corrected gross income.
And that's at
out
30.
Out of that, we need to cover our holding costs. We need to cover the cost of money to borrow, right?
Yeah.
Our interest fees. We need to cover the utilities and our mortgage payments and whatever we have until we get it sold. And then it comes down to maybe $5,000 profit.
Good.
Right. Yeah. So reality TV isn't going to teach you that. They talk about gross numbers. So the reason why I use 3% is because when I owned an auto repair shop, what I used to do is for my labor rate, because what most people do when they're trying to figure out what their labor rate is, and I'm going to bring all this back to the podcast here in a minute. What most people would do is they would call around and see what everybody else is charging for labor, and they would go up or down. That doesn't work for Bill. So what I did is after studying and learning and whatever, because I got really good at that business too. I owned a auto repair shop and a gas station for almost 27 years. So I did really well with it. And then I kind of got a little cuckoo at the end and blew a bunch of money. But anyways, I have a technician, we'll say a auto mechanic that would make, and they didn't make this, they never made this amount of money. It was too low. But say they make $10 an hour.
Yeah.
I would multiply the $10 an hour by 1.25 or 25%. So what I would do is my direct cost was $12.50.
Your what?
My direct cost was $12.50 because I added 25%. Okay. So what that meant was I would pay him $10 and then I would have FDIC and Social Security. I had to match his deductions, which most employees don't know that their boss is matching their deductions. So if they got $300 taken out of their check, that means the boss paid $300 too.
Got it.
Okay. So what I did for my labor rate is if it was $12.50, I would multiply that by 3. So $12.50 times 3. So my labor rate should be no less than $37.50. So I would probably make my labor rate $40.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I'm doing this with real estate, I've decided to do the same thing. So here's what I'm talking about. Let's bring it back to the podcast. So if you need to replace, are you back? You keep freezing. You okay?
Oh, yeah, I didn't know it was freezing.
Yeah. Okay. So if you have $1,000 a year, $1,000 a week job, right? In other words, your gross pay is $1,000.
Yeah.
That means you're doing $52,000 a year, give or take.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to have assets that produce $150,000 a year. Right? So let me see, 150,000 it's $3,000 a week, right?
Yeah.
Or $12,000 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we do that is because you want to have cushions and you have expenses and you don't want to live tight.
Yeah, and you'll probably start spending if you start making.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things you should do, which I go in and out of, I mean, I'm not doing it now, but I was, is you should always peel off a percentage, 5% or 8% or 10% for reserves.
Mm-hmm.
If you're diligent with that, I've seen the most amazing things happen with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I say you want to have financial freedom, that's the formula.
Mm.
Okay. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. I have more things to cover before we get into the deal structuring. And this is, as far as I am concerned, this is the highlight, or to be not to be perverted, but the orgasm of this podcast. This is the highlight in my mind. Won't be in your mind or the listener's minds. But I promise you, if you listen to me and fix this one thing, your life will change. That is not a promise. That's a wholehearted, 100%, 1000% fact. The word low key. The words low key.
Didn't see that coming. Okay.
So if you have a mentality of being low key, when taking the approach on creative real estate or on anything, on their deals, if you're low key with your deals or your financial freedom, then you will not make it. The definition of low key is not intense, is what comes to mind at first. It's modest or restrained, or other words. So what I have found, and I'm going to, all right, so let me finish that. Mostly it means moderate or easygoing. It even means of low or moderate intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Like doing something, but in a chilled way. You're just chilled out. So what I have found is, without getting too deep into this, people that are kind of like fearful, people that don't like confrontation, people that will do anything to avoid a disruption or loud noises or a public embarrassment, somebody that has an ego and doesn't, and they feel like they're portraying that ego to others and they want people to think of them a certain way, even though they are not that way, right? People that are showing off, people that are trying to hide their true feelings are low key. Because here's what penetrates low key. Confront. Confront. Let's look that up. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, that's a question that I think I asked you in the beginning, like when we're doing this, when we're talking to people, what makes it work? Is it just the facts of the matter, or do you have to have your personality and your intention in on it, your drive, like pushing it through? How much can you ramrod it through? How much has to be factual, informational? How does it combine? Am I being too nice to people? Am I being, all those things? Because I remember being at an event and they were trying to help people in the audience with deals, right? And they would call for them. And they called the guy, hey, we got someone on the phone for you. Got a deal for you. The guy took his sweet ass time walking to the stage. He looked like the most disinterested bored person in the world.
Yep.
And I said to myself, he's not going to do well.
Right.
I hadn't thought of the word low key, but it's totally low key. It was like, is anybody home?
Right.
Yipes. I wouldn't want to go like watch a movie with the guy, forget to do business with him.
So good. So confront means to face up and deal with, like a problem or a difficult situation.
Yeah, I
I mean,
actually know the derivation of that one. It's with your forehead, with your head, with your fronds, with
with
your
your
forehead,
face.
like yeah, like right in there, in your
Yeah.
face, with your face. Yeah,
Because some other
look it
ones
up
are
once.
meet someone face to face with hostile or argumentative intent.
Yeah.
So people that are trying to not confront that,
Mhm.
are uncomfortable with that. They're not uncomfortable with the situation. They're uncomfortable with how they would respond. They're afraid they're
Mhm.
going to get squashed or smashed or get hurt,
Mhm.
right? And the reason why this comes about is because of too many losses in the past, and they're trying to prevent the loss in the future.
Mhm.
Okay, so my point is, if you have this mentality, the likelihood of you finding gargantuan deals are going to be slim.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it in a chill way, like, after the kids go to bed at night and after, wife, you have dinner and you satisfy everybody else, now it's your turn at 8 o'clock at night to do real estate,
Mhm.
it's the wrong way,
Mhm.
right? It's like you want to be the lead horse of this here wagon,
Yeah.
right? You want to be out front.
Mhm.
So doing creative real estate this way does reduce stress caused by pushing yourself or the deals to be gargantuan. So I can tell you that your biggest payday is on the other side, just the other side of the fear.
Mhm.
It's on the other side of what you're not confronting, which, by the way, what causes fear is lack of confront.
Yeah.
If you face your problems and you hit them head on, and here's what I have found, it's kind of like it's the definition of a good executive, as far as I'm concerned. A really good executive sees indicators early on. Like you have normal income of $10,000 a month, and this month it was 9,700.
Yeah.
Instead of just being low key and
Yeah.
saying, "Yeah, well, it's Christmas," or
Mhm.
"Yeah, well, so and so was on vacation," right?
That's right.
You need to dig in and you need to be tenacious on why didn't we do 11,000? Why are we at 9,700?
Yeah.
Most will wait and say, well, yeah, well, so and so was on vacation. And then next month it's at 9,300. And then next thing you know, it's 3 months later and you're at 5,500 and payroll is 6,000.
Oh.
Okay. So this is what happens with low key people is they don't hit so just what I explained, they don't hit it early enough and it grows bigger. So now instead of being a $300 problem, like in my example, now
Mhm.
it's a $4,000 problem or a $4,500 problem. And it's harder to deal with.
Yep.
So that's why I say when you're doing deals and you're talking to sellers, you confront their concerns and considerations in the ugliness of the deal right away. Otherwise, you're just massaging your own ego. As I say in the past, it's a gross saying, but it's mental masturbation on your part. You're just playing with yourself in your mind.
Mhm.
Because what's happening is you're making yourself believe there's a deal there when there's not. Because you are low key.
Yep. I worked with somebody years ago, and it was like a sales type of thing of helping people and getting them to do things that are good for them. Doctors have to do that, registrars have to do that. And I'd see them talk to somebody, and they something would happen, like they would flinch, or they wouldn't answer something, or they get quiet. And like if you're a chicken shit, you just ignore it. Well, hope it goes away, and I get the sale, or I help to. But he said, "What happened?" And he would dig into every little thing and find out what's going on and help the person through it instead of just ignoring it and like, well, I hope it's not a problem. Talk about it, bring it up. Don't, but then again, he could face it, he could confront it, he wasn't afraid. And because of that, things went better instead of worse. I mean, simple every day. If you're driving your car and you smell something funny or hear a funny noise, you're going to wait till the tire falls off. You're going to check it out now. Some people don't check it out now and the tire falls off. So it's worse.
So in the world of gargantuan deals, I used to think that the only way to get a gargantuan deal is to go after the hard to find deals that nobody else could see. But I'm going to show you right now, because I want to get into the deal structure. I'm going to show you right now what I figured out. And honest to God, Peter, you know this. I know you know this because you tell me all the time. Honest to God, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is 30 years worth of tweaking deals that I'm going to give to you in the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you can't recognize what I'm going to tell you, then I suggest you stop training yourself and stop trying to do deals, because you're not the one.
Oh, that's cold, but it's true.
Okay, so the first thing, let's get into the deal structuring. First thing that each deal needs to decide where the money is. Right? So you have to decide on every deal, where is the money? And that can only happen if you calculate the entire deal, not just pieces and parts of the deal.
Exactly. The whole story.
We do this with the great equalizer that I talk about a lot, that is, I promise you, is used low key. Money now, money monthly, money later. I can tell you with absolute 1,000,000% certainty, coaching a lot of people, some have made millions and have amazing businesses. I'll never forget one of the coaching clients I had. His objective for my coaching was to be with me for 1 year, so he could make enough money that he could buy a sailboat and sail. I forgot, not around the world, but to sail for 1 year.
Yeah.
Not only did he do it, but it is probably 5 years later, and he's one of my best lenders.
And I see his posts on Facebook in his boat. I see it. I know what you're talking about.
He made enough money to leave his job, buy a boat, and they went sailing for 1 year. He took a year off and went sailing, I think from Maine to Florida or something like that. And he had a blast.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't come across telling you things like this without these stories. Okay?
Yeah.
Every single time somebody brings me a deal, I think and I voice to my coaching client, where's the money now? Where's the money monthly? Where's the money later? You hear me doing it on the coaching calls. You hear me doing it with you. You hear you do it to me. And it makes you think, where is the money? Right? This formula totals the entire deal structure automatically for you, so you can see the total profits and how much time you should put into this deal or not.
Right.
So if you're looking at a deal, and there's been times where you and I will look at deals and we're thinking we're paying too much money, but all of a sudden it's got $1,200 a month in positive cash flow. We were looking at the deal incorrectly. We stopped looking at the deal because we thought, there's no way I could pay $220,000 for that $190,000 house. How could I do that? But the terms are so good that we could buy a house $10,000, $12,000, $20,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over market value. I've got several of them where I'm making $500, $600 a month, and I overpaid for them.
Yep.
Right. So let me give you a good and a bad example of this, so it makes sense to you.
Okay.
So the first example is, and you can write these numbers down if you're listening. The house is worth $240,000. Seller's asking $260,000. But it's free and clear. Free and clear means there's no mortgage.
Yeah.
By the way, 35%, and I would venture to say after COVID that number's higher, but 35% of this country does not have a mortgage on it. And that irritates the living crap out of the banker. He wants that money so bad.
Oh, you wouldn't know. They push the tellers to sell mortgages and loans.
Yep.
The tellers at the front, not the guy at the desk, the poor teller.
Yep.
The two family members are tellers. And we have to make these quotas. Oh my God. They just want the interest. Bill, they want the cash flow.
There you go.
Cash flow.
So you offer to pay this seller $260,000 within 7 years, which nowadays I don't even do 7 years. I start with I'll pay $1,000 a month for how long? For 260 months until it's paid off. But in the beginning, I would do, so you offer this seller for to pay $260 for 7 years, and you tell the seller you can pay him $1,000 a month, principal only payments. Now, at first glance, without our great equalizer formula, it looks like you're paying too much.
Yep.
As a side note, when you use a bank with interest to buy a house and go a full 30 years paying monthly, you're paying, by the way, 2.5 to 3 times the purchase price. Remember, we used to do this in seminar, right?
Yeah.
So overpaying 20 grand with no interest is not a big deal. So we used to do this in seminars. Like, how much did you pay for your house? Oh, I paid, $200,000. Oh, okay. Did you pay cash? Oh, no, I have a mortgage. Okay, well, how much is your mortgage payment? Well, my mortgage payment, principal and interest is $1,000. Okay.
Yeah, and then he's got 360 payments. You do the math, like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Nowadays I have a little mortgage calculator on my phone, and you can get them online or anywhere, right? And you put any numbers in, it'll tell you, here's how much you're paying in interest over the next 30 years, taxes over the next 30 years, and your total payment is gonna be. They'll show you the number right there. There's no surprise. But people live month to month. Like, I can make the payment. I got a house. You move in. But in the end, look at what you really pay. They'll tell you. It's right there in the pie chart.
Right.
Yep. I can find it in 1 minute on my phone. Bang.
Right.
Beats renting the rest of your life, I suppose, and not having anything.
Well, that's what they say. Yeah. So instead of renting and buying the house for, paying for the house for somebody else's house, like they say, right, which is a mortgage trick. Oh, you shouldn't be paying somebody else's mortgage. Well, you're paying the mortgage, and he's making 2.5 times the amount of money. What's the difference?
Working for the bank. Maybe it can work for us. Hey, the things you don't like in this world, why don't you be more like them? Then you can be the bad guy and you make the money. But do it nice. Be nice to people.
We're going to talk about that. All right. So let's say this house has $400 per month, a tax bill, and $150 a month for insurance expense. So we paid $260. We're paying the seller $1,000. We have $400 and then $150. So we're paying $1,550 a month for total expense.
Yeah, because that $1,000 is just for him in his pocket.
Right.
You have this. You're doing that. You just said the expenses separately, so he doesn't pay them. It's just in his pocket.
Right. Okay. Now we get our tenant buyer to pay $1,950. Okay, which is low for $260,000 in today's economy.
Yeah, it
should be like $2,300.
Yeah,
right. And the way you figure that out is if you went and got a $260,000 mortgage at 6% or 7%, plus the interest of $400. Plus the interest at 6 or 7%, $400 for taxes, $150 for insurance. It would be like $2,300. Anyways. Yeah. If you got him to pay $1,950, your buyer to pay $1,950, we would have $400 per month in cash flow.
Right.
And assign the buyer all the landlord obligations. So we have no tenant landlording obligations.
And not the expenses of the repairs of plumbing and the thing and this, that, or the other. Mowing, shoveling, none of that's expensive.
So the key word is they're a buyer.
Yeah.
So if you were to go rent a car, you go on vacation, you rented a car, are you going to like wash it and change the oil and put tires on it? No, you don't own it. But if you own the car, you would. So that's how this buyer is going to treat this house.
Yeah.
Right, so let's take a look at the formula now. So money now is 5% down.
Okay.
I suggest you don't do less than 5% because they're going to need that much for an FHA mortgage. You could get a 3% mortgage, but I wouldn't bank on that. I would make sure. I know that 5% is pretty certain you can get a mortgage for 5%.
Right.
Even though you might be able to get 3%, I want to get the higher number to make sure there's no trouble. You're going to have enough trouble with them getting them qualified for a mortgage. You don't want to beg them for more money. So get your money first.
And when they give us the 5%, that counts to the bank as they made that down payment already.
Right. No, it doesn't matter how many years later. They always had that, right?
Yeah.
So that means you're getting $13,000 now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Plus you're getting $400 a month positive cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Because their expenses were $1550.
Yeah.
And we're collecting $1950, so there's $400 a month.
Yeah.
Plus there's $60,000 in later money. Now, we overpaid by 20, but how did we get $60,000? Well, remember, we had 7 years or 84 months to pay the seller off in a balloon payment, which is one lump sum. So we put our tenant buyer in for 5 years or 60 months. So we have a cushion on the other end of 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. And every time we collected the $1950 from our buyer, we paid our seller $1,000 principal reduction, which means at 60 months, we owe the seller $60,000 less money.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In principal reduction. Now the buyer is paying for usage only. They're not paying for principal reduction. We didn't give the buyer a loan. We did a rent to own, so they're paying rent for usage of the property.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting principal reduction.
No, they didn't buy it yet.
So we're collecting non-principal reduction money and using it to pay principal reduction money. Gives us 60 grand.
Yep.
So if you add up the $13,000 plus the $400 a month for 60 months, that's $24,000. Right? Now you have to be careful here because you have to subtract the $13,000 down payment from the $60,000.
Right, because that was
you don't want to add it. I mean, the $60,000 was total profit. You just collected it, the $13,000 early, and then the rest was monthly.
Right. You don't want to double count it.
You don't want to count it twice, right?
No.
So you have really $47,000 profit. So our grand total is $84,000, which is worth our time, right?
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. That's if we only go 6 years. That's if we only go 5 years. What if we go 7 years?
Yeah.
That's a pretty damn good deal. Is that worth looking for and finding and working on paperwork and putting your time into it? To me, that's a gargantuan deal, especially if you do it for $100 deposit.
Exactly, because there was no money in.
Right. So the rate of return is infinite.
And this is a real deal you did. This isn't a theoretical on paper. You did this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the bad.
The bad deal.
Yep.
Okay.
And this doesn't mean you should not do these deals. It just means you limit your time and focus on them. Okay. Let's do a slot deal.
Okay.
A slot deal is a sandwich, lease, option, transfer. It's an acronym. It's a joke. It's actually a joke because you and I were in the car one day and I said, I was explaining the deals to you. I'm smoking a cigar and you're like listening, right? And I said, a slot deal. It's like a slot machine, Pete. You put $10 in and you get back 100.
Yeah. That's right.
Right?
And
it's a sandwich, lease, option, transfer. The easiest way to understand this type of transaction is it's like wholesaling lease options. So you get a lease option with your seller and you wholesale it to your buyer for a fee.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means you don't stay in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's the numbers. Let's say the house is worth 180 grand.
Yeah.
Seller owes 180 grand and can't afford to pay the closing costs of 12 to 15% out of pocket.
That's right.
Okay. So 12 to 15% is, 5 to 6% would be realtor cost or, marketing cost.
Mm-hmm.
3% is negotiating because nobody ever pays full price. 3% is for repairs, which is more like what I call bribe money. Means that the inspector came in and charged $400 or $500 and is justifying his fee by finding things that are wrong. Even if it's a beautiful house, he'll find code violations. Bottom line is, for that $400 or $500, he'll spook your buyer, and now you gotta either do the repairs or give him money at closing to keep him in the deal. Average is 3%. And then you have another 3% for closing costs. 1% of that is conveyance tax. It's 0.5% for the city, 0.5% for the state. That varies. Sometimes it's 3/4 and 1/2, but it's no less than 1%.
That's the ball. That's right. Turns out, my son just had an appraisal on his house, or an inspection. $800 covered everything. I believe it was $800, and it's a beautiful looking house. I took a look at it. There's a crack in the electrical system coming into the house, and they got water going into the electric panel. So, yeah. And it's you couldn't see that. It's like, what a nice house. My God, look at this thing. Beautiful. Doesn't need a thing. The floors are nice. Everything's painted. Just move in. There. How much? $3,000, $4,000.
Yep.
Just like that.
Yep.
That happened this week.
Yep. So the last 3% is the closing costs, which 1% is conveyance tax, and then you're going to have your closing agent or attorney. You're going to have, prorated taxes, prorated sewer, prorated water, prorated oil, whatever. Yeah. That's, if you can get it down to 3%, that's good. Sometimes it's more than 3%.
Yeah.
Okay. So the house is worth 180. They can't afford to pay the 12 or 15%.
Yeah.
So they owe 180, and the house is worth 180.
Looks like there's no profit in there at all, doesn't it?
Right. The monthly payments are $1,485 per month, and that's with the taxes and insurance, and it's all loaded up.
Yeah.
And the seller is willing to wait a minimum of 2 years to get the loan paid off. They're just glad that they don't have to pay 12% or 15%. Yeah. I mean, how much is that? 180,000 times 15% is $12,000.
Yeah.
That can't be right.
No. It's 27. I did 18 plus half of 18.
Yeah, 27,000. You're right.
Yeah. I use Italian calculation on that.
I get it.
But there's no equity in the house. Doesn't matter how long he waits. He's not getting anything.
Here is the key, the impetus of this deal that most people don't think about. Peter just said it. They're not getting anything from this house. There's no reward. There's no upside. There's just downside. Yeah, so if you come along and say you could do I'll do this deal. I'll take over your $1,485 payment. I'll pay the $180. I just got to defer your payoff. I need 2 years to rent it to my buyer so they can get qualified for a loan. Yeah. So you pay the $180 that they owe and the $180, $1,485 a month, and you assign all that to your buyer. You're not paying it. They are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And they will have to do all the repairs and do all the maintenance and cut the grass and all that. So the seller is not a landlord. He's just a bank. You sign a 2-page option agreement, which means you have the right to buy but not the obligation to buy. I use $100. You could use $1. It has to be paper money. You could use $1, but I use $100 to be professional.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the clever part. You agree with the seller to have 90 days to find your buyer before you lose your $100 option consideration deposit.
Mm-hmm.
You go test the market, right?
Yeah.
You test the market to see if you can do this deal. Now, you're going to sell it for more than 180, probably 190, 200. Now, think of it this way. If you were to buy my computer today and pay me $1,000 today and you gave it to me in cash, you'd be giving me $1,000.
Yep.
Or if you paid me $1,000 and you swiped your credit card and paid over 24 months, you're no longer paying $1,000, just like we were talking about the mortgages earlier.
That's right.
So the person that doesn't have $1,000 and needs to swipe their credit card understands that it's the American way. I didn't invent it. Right? You put this house. Go ahead.
Well, if something costs a certain amount and you have to take a bunch of time to pay it off, and you're standing there waiting for your money, like, what are you going to give me for making me wait?
Right.
You know, if somebody comes along and gives me money now, that's one thing. But if you're going to make me wait, you got to give me more. I'm waiting. I'm sitting at home. I'm wondering if I'm going to get paid. I'm not going to get paid. Give me more. That's all there is. That's all you need to know.
So you could put this house on the market. That's exactly right, Peter. With an ad that says house for sale, no bank qualifying, which means you would post it on Zillow for rent, not for sale, for rent. Facebook Marketplace, or my favorite, apartments.com, for say $185,000 or $190,000.
Yeah.
You get the applicants to pay $25 for a background check and what their credit score, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're asking $190,000, you need to make sure they have $10,000 for down payment.
Yep.
It's a non-refundable deposit. So technically, you're buying the option agreement from the seller for $100, and you're selling it to your buyer for $10,000. So are you buying a house, or are you buying and selling a piece of paper? You're controlling it, just like Nelson Rockefeller said. The way to get wealthy or stay wealthy is to own nothing, control everything. Okay?
Yep.
Now let's analyze it with our great equalizer. The money now is 10 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Money monthly is 0.
Zippity doo dah.
Money later is 0.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this technically a bad deal? 1, both deals can cost you $100 down. 2, both deals take about the same amount of time to do them.
Yeah.
3, both deals have about the same amount of paperwork to do.
Yeah.
4, both deals you assign the landlording obligations so you can set it and forget it.
Mm-hmm.
5, both deals just are as hard to find. Right?
Yeah.
Now, before we scoot off today, let's be clear. So first of all, I want to make sure we understand the difference between a good deal and a bad deal. You keep freezing, so I want to make sure you're back before I go further. Peter's frozen. There you are. You're back.
Boy, we both disappeared as far as I could see there for a few seconds.
I think it's a video card in your computer that keeps doing that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
time for a new computer.
Yeah, it's time for it's not maybe, you need a new computer. So anyways, the point is that if you're going to work and find deals, I'm not telling you not to do slot deals, because it would be wonderful to have $10,000 worth of cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not the way you're going to retire early.
Mm.
And the great equalizer is to look at the entire deal, which is money now, money monthly, money later. That's the entire deal. That's the only way you can look at it. You can't look at it any other way.
Well, a slot deal is more like a job.
Yeah.
Because you get paid once and it's over. The lease option, category number 3 in the deal structures, that's more like an investment because it goes on for 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and money keeps coming. And there's a chunk at the end. The longer it goes, there's more there is at the end. So it definitely is an investment with a payoff at the end. That's the difference.
So the point that I think we need to make here is, if you're wholesaling or trying to wholesale real estate, you're trying to look for ugly houses with motivated sellers that will sell you for 40, 50, 60 cents on a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been doing that all through COVID, you'll realize that's not so easy. Not to mention, there are a lot of people that are trying to buy these contracts for $100. Not a lot of people closing on these contracts with the money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of wholesalers out there looking to pass their contracts along, looking for the money guys, and there's not a lot of money guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or the wholesaler gets frustrated because they're on the phones. Instead of paying $50,000 or $60,000 for a $100,000 house, next thing you know, they're going to do an $80,000 deal and shop it around because they have no deals and they don't know what else to do.
Yep.
So the point is those wholesalers are dealing with ugly houses. The slot deal is a wholesaler, but doing it with pretty deals. So it's the same concept of having a job on the phone, dialing people, except you have more opportunity with a slot deal and a pretty house than you do with an ugly house.
Mm-hmm.
Because, first of all, ugly houses need talented people to fix them.
Yeah.
Pretty houses just need somebody to pay for them. The only talent is, can you pay every month? And you could do that mathematically. What we do is, in this particular case, if you have a $1,485 a month mortgage, we're just looking for somebody to pay make 3 times that money. So they need to make $4,500 a month, and they qualify. And it doesn't have to be one person. It could be a couple people. As long as whoever's going on the lease has to make more than $4,500 a month. I just did this with a deal. It's actually an apartment that I have, because I have apartments.
Yeah.
Right. So I had 3 people that applied for this apartment, and it's an apartment. So I want to make sure that's clear because I'm a landlord. Right. But the point that I'm going to teach you right now, or tell you about right now, is the point that I'm trying to make. So I had one applicant that made $88,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
The rent is $1,595, $1,600. It's a 1,700 square foot second floor apartment. It's the second and third floor. It's got 4 bedrooms, possibly 5. Okay, it's a big place.
That's bigger than most houses.
I just spent $15,000 renovating this place. So it's bigger than most houses. Yeah. So I'm getting $1,595 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So my first applicant has $88,000 a year income. She's got 4 kids, 2 young ones, 2 teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
That's without his income. He's kind of a stay-at-home dad, but he's got like income, right?
Yeah.
They had an eviction.
Oh.
The second person comes along and they actually, I'm giving you the wrong deal. I'm sorry, I'm giving you the wrong deal. I'm going to back up. This was the house in Windsor I was selling. I'm sorry, this is the house in Windsor.
Oh, yeah, the lease option?
I was selling on a lease option. I'm giving you the wrong deal.
Yeah.
Actually, let me finish the one that I had. So the second applicant I had I think they had $40,000 worth of income, but really good credit, and there's just 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then the third application that I had was the same thing. They had like $50,000 a year worth of income. Anyways, the bottom line is that I picked the first one to focus on, and I called the landlord to find out that the landlord had a two right around the corner, like literally 3 blocks away, had a 2-family house, and he evicted the second floor tenant already and was now evicting the first floor. He was evicting them because of a time restraint. In other words, they were past their lease by a year or 2. They've been in this place for like 7 years.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the guy, I was very frank with him, and I found out that the reason why he's evicting is because he wants to renovate and he wants to get more money for rent because everybody in the neighborhood is getting more money.
So he threw them out for his purpose, not that they did anything wrong.
Right. So I hunted it down for a week, and I chose them, and they were very appreciative for me walking in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now let's go to Windsor, the house in Windsor that I just sold. Right. Same deal. I had a guy that come along. We're selling for $190. Right.
Yep.
Guy comes in and he says he's going to put 20% down, which is a $34,000 deposit.
Mm-hmm.
But he only wants to pay $150. We settle at $170.
Okay.
And he's going to pay what we're asking $1,675 for the rent, which makes like $400 a month or $300 a month. Second guy comes in and says, and he's got sufficient income. The second guy comes in and says he's got $12,000 down, which is what I was asking, and he'll pay $1,675 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Third guy comes in and he's got $7,000 to put down. He's self-employed and he's moving from New Jersey.
Mm.
I put the third guy in. And the reason why I did is because, first of all, I didn't want the $24,000 because what am I going to do with that? I have to go reinvest it. I'd rather have it in the house. And I didn't want to sell for $170. Because if he was starting off on that foot, then that means he's going to nickel and dime me all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Every little thing he's going to want to get paid for.
Yeah.
So the middle guy started out by telling me he had $8,000 and wouldn't give me any more, and that's all he had, and he wasn't willing to pay down payment assistance.
Okay.
So the third guy, I picked him, and then he called back. After I picked the third guy, he called back. The middle guy said, I just did a job. I got the $12,000 now. Can I do it?
Yeah.
So he would have been a good candidate. But the reason why I picked the third guy is because he's self-employed. He's an electrician. And this guy was motivated. Everything he told me he was going to do, he did it in an hour.
Yeah.
He's handy. The house needed some work. So he's an electrician. He was handy. So I took that deal that was like whatever it was. It took it from $1,675 to $1,883 a month.
Oh.
Because of the down payment assistance. Because he gave me $7,000. I needed $12,000, so he borrowed $5,000, and I divided it by whatever it was, 12 months. I think it was $208 a month or so. I forgot what the number was.
Yeah. So he's paying it off over time.
So he's paying $1,883 a month. So that means my cash flow went from like $300 now to all of a sudden or $400 to $600 or something. Well, actually, my numbers are screwed up because it makes a total of about $700 and change cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a motivated tenant.
Yep.
And I actually think this guy was all over his credit score. I actually think he's going to cash this out, which I'd like to do with this property.
Yeah.
I think he's actually going to go get a loan within a year, and he's going to do it.
Yeah.
So the reason why I talk about these deals is because money now, money monthly, money later, I had to make my business decisions by the whole numbers, not just because the guy's going to give me $24,000 down.
Yeah.
The first guy's going to give me $24,000 down at the expense of reducing my price by 20 grand.
Hmm.
So why do I want to take $24,000 down unless I was desperate for money right now? Even if I was desperate for money right now, I wouldn't want to do that deal because I worked too hard to get that deal, which, by the way, this house is on a second tenant. We bought this house 3 years ago and had a tenant in there for 2.5 years. They already paid us $12,000 down. We already made $300 a month for the last 2.5 years. You see?
Yeah, well, that's the crazy thing about it. Well, gee, what if the guy doesn't pay? Good, you do it again. You make more money.
Right.
This is about how to turn problems into solutions.
So if you want to fire your boss or quit the income that you have now, you have to pay attention to the cash flow. Right? So too many rookies evaluate deals and they're too focused on the money now and never get past it to find the real gold mine.
Yeah.
Money monthly, money later. I'm sorry, money monthly, money now. I'm sorry, money now, money monthly, money later.
There you go.
Right? So money now is chunks of dough to pay down debt, buys cars and vacations, all that kind of good stuff. Money monthly allows you to fire your boss or quit your current income system. And money later allows you retirement security blanket like none other in this country. The last point, in case you are worried about all of my numbers and you're doing them casually like I did today, no worries. We have a calculator that will do all this for you. And because you're listening today, I'm going to give you free use of the calculator. I think it's 3 or 5 for 3 or 5 deals, so you can see how the calculator works. So if you go to creativerealestatecalculator.com, you can get that. I'll put that link in the description. So it's creativerealestatecalculator.com. And all these deals that we're talking about, imagine getting 5 or 6 numbers, putting them in the calculator, and the calculator automatically figures out by a red light, a yellow light, or a green light, all 7 of my deals, whether it's a good deal, a bad deal, or a semi-good deal, which is the yellow light. So red is obviously no, don't do that deal. Yellow is like tweak your numbers and you could do it, and green is like, yeah, this is the one to do it. Mm-hmm. And there's checklists in there, and you can do all your paperwork, all your documents in there. So go check it out. It's realestatecalculator.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to say before we left?
No, I think I'm good. But
okay,
the important thing is you get all the information. The interest rate is too high. I don't care. Look at all the numbers. He's not giving me enough now. It doesn't matter. Look at all the numbers.
Right.
And, time is a number too. Well, we have to do it a little bit longer, or we got to do it a little bit shorter. Just do all the data, all the numbers, and then decide how you want it to work.
Exactly. All right, good. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything that you tell your friends about us, good, bad, or indifferent. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Please make sure that you like us or dislike us, whichever you feel. Hopefully you liked us. Please make sure that you leave us a comment wherever you're listening so others can hear your opinion. Also, make sure that you go in the description and get the link that I put in there so I can help you with other things outside of this podcast. And I think we're over and out. The next podcast is podcast number 353, and it's called ROI. In other words, rate of return. ROI, how to evaluate and execute creative real estate deals for gargantuan profits. And it's an extension of today's podcast, and I'm going to go over some more details, so you're going to want to listen. Mm-hmm. All right, have a good week. We'll talk to you on the next episode.